Hello and welcome to this UniTaster On Demand event today. My name is John Cheek. I'm the founder and director of UniTasterDays, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Dr. Sophie Ward, who's joining us from Arden University. Sophie is going to deliver a session today looking at student wellbeing and mental health, which is such an important subject area. Sophie is the lead of postgraduate psychology programs at Arden University, and her session, which I know you're really keen to watch, but just to give you a little taste of what it might well include, is going to look at things like what is student wellbeing and mental health, how you can protect, well, some tips in terms of protecting your own mental health, and also how you can support others, and much more. I'll pass things over straight away now to Sophie, please.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on student wellbeing and mental health. My name's Sophie Ward, as John mentioned, and I'm the programme lead for postgraduate psychology at Arden University. I've run a few webinars now centred on the topic of mental health, and John has kindly invited me to talk to you today to help you to understand the concept of wellbeing and mental health, and give you information and tips on how to protect and enhance your own wellbeing, your own mental health and that of others, especially given the current situation that we all find ourselves in. So today then, we're going to have a look at what wellbeing and mental health is, the current mental health of young people in England, why students such as yourselves may be more susceptible to mental health problems, what the most common mental health problems experienced by students are, what you can do to help protect your own well-being and mental health and that of others, what you can do if you or someone you know is currently dealing with mental health problems, and some final points to remember. So first of all then, what is well-being and mental health? Well, according to the World Health Organization, well-being is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Similarly, mental health is not just the absence of mental disorder, which is a common misconception. Indeed, mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realises his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And unfortunately, mental health in particular remains a neglected part of public health agendas, even though mental health conditions account for nearly 20% of years of life lost due to disability. Over 300 million people worldwide suffer from depression, and almost the same number for anxiety disorders, while global suicide is a leading cause of death in young people. And recent statistics suggest that the current pandemic has only added to these worrying statistics, particularly in the young people. And as we can see here, in a follow-up report to the Mental Health and Young People Survey in 2017, research conducted last year and commissioned by NHS Digital found that the rates of probable mental disorders have increased since 2017. In 2020, so only last year, at the height of the pandemic, 1 in 6, so 16% of children aged 5 to 16 years were identified as having a probable mental disorder, increasing from 1 in 9, 10.8% in 2017. And that increase was evident in both boys and girls. They also found that the likelihood of a probable mental disorder increased with age, with a noticeable difference in gender for the older age group. So that's between 17 to 22 years. And 27.2% of that was in young women and 13.3% young men, showing that there was some difference there in terms of gender. And that brings me on to why students are more susceptible to mental health problems. The first contributor is age. A large proportion of students are under 25, and around 3/4 of adults with a mental illness have their first episode before turning 25, making age a key contributing factor. Secondly, students are often subjected to intense pressure and stress from different areas in their life, including school or university, home life, friendships and romantic relationships. And while stress isn't a mental health problem, it can lead to mental health problems like depression and anxiety. And lastly, students, especially during their later years, are often faced with big changes in their life, which can make them vulnerable to developing a mental health problem. For example, meeting new people, learning new concepts and managing finances, perhaps leaving home and finding independence if you're moving to university or moving away for a new job or an apprenticeship. And together, these factors increase students' susceptibility to mental health problems. Of course, these aren't the only factors which contribute towards mental health in students. There are many more, but these are some of the key factors that we must consider. The mental health problems then that are most common among students are anxiety, depression, and suicidal feelings. Now, anxiety is what we feel when we are worried, tense, or afraid, particularly about things that are about to happen or which we think could happen in the future. As a student, it is almost inevitable that you will experience anxiety at some point during your studies. Anxiety can be triggered by a range of factors, such as finding a particular subject challenging and preparing for exams. This can be further exacerbated when moving from school or college to university, as you prepare to be apart from the people and place you've known for a long period of time, to meet new people and find your way around somewhere new. Depression, another common mental health problem amongst students, is low mood that lasts for a long time. While most people go through periods of feeling low, when you're depressed, you feel persistently sad for weeks or months, rather than just for a few days. It's more than simply feeling unhappy or fed up for a few days. If you're living with depression, you may be experiencing feelings of unhappiness and hopelessness. You may have lost interest in things you used to enjoy and be feeling very tearful. It's likely that you will also feel anxious and tired, have no appetite or sex drive, and various aches and pains. The symptoms of depression range from mild to severe. At its mildest, you may simply feel persistently low in spirit, while severe depression can make you feel suicidal. It's important that everybody is aware of these problems, including parents, teachers, and yourselves as students. Being able to recognise the signs in yourself and or your peers is extremely important. So what can you do then to help protect your well-being and mental health, especially during the current pandemic? One of the first things is to look after your body. Try to find a period of time each day that you exercise, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes. Exercise is great for both our physical and mental health. It's surprising the effects it can have. And I know it can be difficult, especially when you're already not feeling 100%. But if you can push yourself, even just to go for a walk around the block, it will really help. And usually, once you've started, it's much easier to keep going and take up bigger activities such as cycling, boxing, and even skiing, obviously depending on where you are in the world, that is. Another way you can look after your body is by eating healthily and drinking plenty of water. The food we eat can not only affect our bodies, but also our mood. Eating a variety of vegetables, fruits, seeds, lean meat and oily fish, for example, has been found to reduce mood swings, depression and anxiety. The opposite being found for foods high in refined sugar and fat. Unfortunately, when we feel low or anxious, we often choose sugary, fatty or salty foods. Foods that are comforting, rather than nutritious. One way that you could look to combat this is by setting a meal plan early on and or making a shopping list that includes mainly nutritious foods, and then ensuring that you stick to it. This will help you to form a routine and reduce the temptation that may be available to you. Another method is to engage in a mood-boosting activity before you eat. This could be listening to music, lighting your favourite candle, or exercising for a short period. Doing this will assist with controlling your urge for those indulgent foods. It's important once you've formed a routine that you try to maintain it. This is also the case for any other activities that you may do, including your studies, work and hobbies. Maintaining a routine is more important right now due to the current pandemic, as many of our normal daily activities have been disrupted. Your routine could be as simple as getting out of bed and going to bed at the same time every day. It's also a good idea to write down a list of the activities that make you feel happy and energized, as well as those that help you to relax. Once we fall into a cycle of negative thinking, it can often be difficult to remember the things that may help us. In addition to writing a list, you could try planning some of these activities in advance, such as scheduling reading or movie time, or booking an online class to learn something new. Doing this gives you something to look forward to and also helps you to maintain your routine. Further ways to help protect your well-being and mental health are doing something that you've been meaning to do for a while, being creative. Being creative is something that is extremely helpful, whether that's doing something arty, doing something that we DIY. It could even be just doing something in a completely different way to the way you would normally, in terms of cooking, for example. Both creativity and doing something that you are meant to have done but haven't done for some time. Maybe it was the gardening that you didn't want to do last week when it was raining. Both will help to boost your mood and give you a sense of accomplishment. Connecting with others is another way. Although I know this is difficult at the moment due to the current lockdown restrictions, it's still important to speak with others, whether that be over the phone, Zoom, online support forums, or a messaging service. It is advisable, though, to limit your time on social media and the amount of news you're exposed to. Social media can often have a negative effect on our mood as we scroll through the posts made by our friends and family, which are typically made during positive times, therefore giving a false impression of how good things are. There is also a lot of news out there which is provided by somewhat unreliable sources. Try to watch or read news from only reliable sources such as the NHS and World Health Organization. Or you could also subscribe to a newspaper such as the Happy News, which is a platform to share positive news and wonderful people. Lastly, and by no means least, ask for help. If you are finding things difficult, you have questions, or you are concerned, please speak to someone. No matter how small or trivial it may seem, it's affecting your mood, hindering your mood, and or making you feel anxious. That means it's important. Always remember that your feelings are valid, and if you don't feel comfortable talking to a friend or family member, then you can contact your healthcare professional and or one of the many voluntary organisations that are out there to listen, such as the Samaritans. As well as protecting our own well-being and mental health, it's also important to help protect the well-being and mental health of others, especially during this pandemic. One way in which you can do this is by being a friend. Friendship is a crucial element in protecting our well-being and mental health. We need to talk to our friends, and we want to listen when our friends want to talk to us. You can help to protect the well-being and mental health of others by being a friend to them. Friends form one of the foundations of our abilities to cope with the problems that life throws at us. Another way in which you can help to protect the well-being and mental health of others is by being kind. It might seem such a small thing, but in some cases, just saying thank you to someone, smiling, or doing something nice for them, such as sending them a card or flowers, can really help to boost their mood and remind them that they're loved and that they're not alone. It's also important to be supportive, non-judgmental and inclusive. If you notice somebody that's sitting on their own, approach them and ask if they would like to join you and your friends. For example, you might know somebody who's living on their own in the pandemic, and you could ask them to join you on a Zoom call for a family quiz night. They might not know your family that well, but it will really help to include them and also help them to feel supported and like they're not alone. Okay, so I've talked about a variety of methods you can use to help protect your own well-being and mental health and that of others. We're now going to look at what you can do if you or someone you know is already dealing with a mental health problem. While some of the methods I've already covered would still be helpful in this situation, it's important to realise that trying to cope with and treat a mental health problem is much harder than trying to prevent it. One of the first things to do if you're concerned about someone is to ask how they are. Don't be afraid to ask direct questions, especially surrounding difficult topics such as self-harm and suicide. Very often people avoid asking these questions as they are worried how the other person might react and whether it could put ideas in their head that weren't there before. But research has shown that this isn't the case and that we are much better off asking than not asking. Asking them and asking twice could just save their life. Secondly, it's also important that you listen to what they have to say. There's no point asking how they are if you're then going to interrupt them. Make sure you listen carefully and show them that you're listening. You can do this by repeating what they have said to you in brief. For example, I'm really sorry to hear that you are feeling low at the moment. It sounds like a lot has been happening with you, and with your best friend moving away and your final exams coming up. Is there anything I can do to help you? Saying this and just repeating a little bit of what they've said helps the individual to know that you're listening and that you care. It's also important that you don't judge the person. They may tell you some things that you don't agree with. Perhaps you think their view on something is wrong, or that what they are worried about is something meaningless. It's important that you try to see things from their point of view and that you help them to see that their feelings are valid. Telling someone that they shouldn't be feeling the way they do or to chill out because things aren't that bad can make the person feel guilty and in some cases may cause them further anxiety or upset. It may also mean that they're less likely to open up in the future. It's important that we respect the person, their viewpoints, and how they feel. In some situations, you may be able to support the person yourself and or with a friend or family member, especially if they're experiencing short-term difficulties. It may be, however, that the person is experiencing a range of complex problems, including those that are long-term. If this is the case, you may need to support the person in finding more appropriate help. Usually a healthcare professional, again, though it's key that you respect the person. Wait until they're ready. Of course, if you become extremely concerned about them, then it would be advisable to tell somebody who is in a position to help, although you should first inform them of your concerns and that you are going to have to talk to someone. If it's yourself that is struggling, then it is important that you speak to someone you trust and feel comfortable with. Talking itself can be a form of medicine. As they say, a problem shared is a problem solved. You may find just talking about your concerns helps you to feel more positive or less anxious. But if it doesn't, it's important that you continue to talk and find additional support. Activities you might find helpful include challenging negative thoughts, managing your sleep, noticing what is happening around you, and keeping a journal or compassionate toolbox. Resources such as the worry tree and details on how to use guided imagery, progressive muscle relaxation, and developing a compassionate toolbox can be found on a variety of websites such as the NHS and Get Self-Help. A compassionate toolbox is particularly helpful, and it involves putting reminders for your compassionate self in a box or bag, whichever you prefer. These reminders could be anything from books and poems to photographs, a positive statement, and even your favourite perfume or aftershave. You should try and keep this box or bag nearby to remind yourself of it every day, and also in case you need it, you've then got it to hand. Okay, so as we draw to a close today, there are several key pointers that I would like you to out how or why you're feeling the way you do. Then please speak to someone, whether that be a friend, family member, teacher, mentor, or healthcare professional. Talking about how you feel can help you to see things differently, and or it may give you that reassurance that the way you're feeling is valid. Of course, speaking to someone also works the other way around. Don't be afraid to speak up if you think someone else is struggling. It's usually better to ask the question than to shy away from it. Remember, just because someone smiles and says they're okay, doesn't mean that they are. If you have concerns, ask them, and if needed, ask again. The second thing to remember is to look after yourself. Try to maintain a healthy diet, exercise regularly, and be kind to yourself. If you do diverge from your meal plan one day, maybe those cookies that your friend dropped off earlier are calling your name, then that's okay. We all need a treat every now and then, perhaps a movie day in your PJs or breakfast in bed. Just try to find a happy balance. It's also important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself when helping others. Remember, you are more helpful to them if you are fit and well yourself. I tend to think of the adage, put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. You should also try to maintain a routine wherever possible, especially during the current lockdown, which has resulted in massive changes in almost everybody's routine. As I mentioned earlier, do things that make you happy and limit your use of social media and exposure to news, especially that which is unreliable. Make use of the mental health resources available. There are a vast number of online resources and those available through your healthcare professional. Get Self-Help, which is a website, is a great place to start. Also, be a friend to others. Be kind and supportive. A little can go a long way. Listening is also important, not judging others and thinking before you act. Sometimes we only have to stop and think for a minute to realise that what we were about to do or say is not okay. So I've come now to the end of my talk, and I hope you found it helpful and informative. I understand that wellbeing and mental health is a sensitive topic, and that for some people it's still one that is difficult to talk about. I'm hoping that now you've watched this video that you will feel more able to talk about it. And if you do have any concerns, I would like to encourage you to please speak to somebody. I've included the contact details here for a range of mental health charities, and I hope that either you or someone you know will find them beneficial. Thank you for listening.